Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of Chevelle Fixes All. In this episode, I have Kyle with me and his 1970 Chevelle, and we're going to be pulling the Saginaw 4-speed out of here. Let's get to it.
All right, the reason today we are pulling the transmission out of the 70 Chevelle is because the hydraulic throwout bearing is putting too much pressure on the fingers of the pressure plate, meaning that clutch the disc itself is just brushing against the flywheel itself. So with the shim in there right now, we have too much pressure pushing on. We're going to pull that shim out and create a more positive engagement when we're rolling down the highway with this thing.
So the first thing we're going to do to remove this transmission is we got to take out the drive shaft. We have to remove the 4 nuts on the back side of the drive shaft. There's like a U-bolt type thing on the back there that you're going to want to remove the 2 bolts on each of them, and then you can go ahead and take the yoke out and we'll slide it out of the transmission. So let's go ahead and get to that.
Quick tip, when you're pulling pieces like this out, make sure you place the washer and the nut back on the unit, because if not, you have a bunch of parts and piles and whatnot in your cart. They can easily get lost. This way you know what washer, what nut went where. Grab that and all its bearings. Not losing any. All right, with any GMA body, you have 3 points of attachment for your engine and transmission assembly. You have your 2 engine mounts up front, and then you have your rear crossmember on the back of the transmission. In our case, since we're just going to be removing the transmission itself, we're going to put a screw jack because we are underneath the lift. We're going to put it underneath the bell housing to allow support for when we pull this crossmember out. If you're doing it on the ground, a 3rd or a 5th transmission jack or a 5th wheel stock will work just as well as this. With our screw jack securely in place holding the bell housing up, we're going to start removing the crossmember. Now, because we're in mid-restoration with this vehicle, I already have the exterior bolts of the crossmember out, and we're going to remove the bolts that hold the transmission itself to the crossmember. Bolts here are 5/8. We'll just spin those out now. With both bolts out, we can spin the screw jack up just a hair, enough to release it. And slide the crossmember diagonally down and out. All right, we've got the crossmember out of the way now. We've let our screw jack down about 4 inches here to give us some clearance on top of the transmission. And what we're doing now is we're removing these clips. And what these clips do is they hold in the shift linkage. So your shift linkage is shift 1, 2, 3, 4, and then your reverse gear. So with that clip removed, you can simply slide this down and out of the way. And the tool that I found actually works the best is a small diameter hose pair of pliers. So you're actually able to grip around the hose, pull it off, get this up in the space, and you're able to hook it and pry it loose and pull it out without losing it because you have it encapsulated at this particular time. Do that to all 3 and you will have your shift linkages out of the way. And another side note, they have these plastic bushings on them. Make sure you keep track of those. They will need to go back into place. All right, with the shift linkage down and out of the way from the shifter itself here, We're going to pull these 3 bolts. You have 2 on the bottom and 1 up top. This actually holds the shifter itself to the transmission housing. So we're going to pull that off now. All right, we've got the transmission crossmember out, we've got the shifter linkage apart, and then we've got the shifter out itself. As you can see, I still have the speedo cable in. This is because that is a low point on the transmission and we will get fluid leaking out. I don't think we're gonna have to remove the speedo cable as far as we're gonna pull this back to pull that shim out. So I'm gonna go ahead and break all 4 of these bolts loose, take this out. Therefore the transmission, we can be separated away and get that shim out from behind the hydraulic bearing. All right, we've got the 4 nuts that hold the transmission itself to the bell housing out. So we're gonna bring Chad back into frame here, and then we're gonna slide this transmission back and see what we can see how well we can get this on camera of what we're actually trying to accomplish here today. So this, the shim, is what we're after here. So this is our hydraulic throwout bearing, our snout that the hydraulic throw-in bearing rides on, and this is the shim. So Chad's gonna put the flashlight down for your guys' viewing pleasures. We're gonna pull this out and get this shim out of the way and then start the reassembly. All right, we've got the shim out of the way. Hopefully I got that here in the picture. It's conical shape. Basically what it does is it pushes that hydraulic throwout bearing forward this way into the clutch fingers themselves, giving it a little bit of adjustment. So we've got this out of the way. Chad and I are gonna reassemble it now. First thing we have to do is where you guys saw the hydraulic bearing throwout, we're gonna put that back on the snout. We're gonna slide the transmission back into place, get those 4 bolts started now.
So that went in a heck of a lot easier than it did coming out. Just made sure the transmission was in neutral, got it lined up, made sure the hydraulic throwout bearing was positioned correctly, spun this back tail shaft, and sure enough, as soon as you spun it, pushed a little bit of pressure and it went right in there. So we're gonna go put those 4 washers and nuts back onto the transmission into the bell housing and mate those 2 together and then see where we're at.
Now the transmission is back in, we've got it fully engaged. What we need to do ultimately to do a quick test to make sure this is corrected, we're gonna put the drive shaft back in and then spin the back wheels once we have it in gear. Let's try that now. So the quick test we have in mind is we put the drive shaft in. We've got it in neutral now, and we freely spin both directions. So we're going to shift into second gear and see that we get tight and very difficult to spin. So that's great news. So we're going to shift her back into neutral. We're going to reinstall the shifter linkage, and crossmember. Then we're going to put this on the ground to see if we can get her rolling under her own power. So we got the transmission back in and find time to do our final test. So Chad's going to jump in the driver's seat. I'm going to go up front, make sure everything's still good with the engine itself. We're going to start it up. Chad's going to put it in gear and make sure we have rotation of the tires off the ground. Chad, let's get to that. Yep.
Clutch is in.
Ready?
Yep. Put her in gear. Now off of the clutch. We got rotation of the tires. Everything's working well here now.
So as Chad exits the Chevelle, hopefully you guys caught that there on camera, that in first gear we have forward rotation, and in reverse we have reverse rotation, which is incredible. It's a step forward to getting our 70 Chevelle back on the road.
So if this video helped you at all, please make sure to click the like button. If you like this content, subscribe to the channel. Otherwise than that, I got the Cutlass out there, got other vehicles as well. Check those out, and until next time, thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.